Welcome, friends, neighbors, Tesla fans, electric car, and clean energy enthusiasts. I can't tell you how absolutely delighted that we are to have everyone here tonight. Thank you for joining us, and thanks especially to my husband, Alan, whose vision this was, and who has spent countless hours making it a reality. And thank you also, yes, thank you, Alan. Where is he? I'm not sure where that man has gone. Okay. He always tends to disappear when he's being thanked. All right, I'd like to also thank our fabulous event coordinator, Nicole McManus, who lights up every room she enters with her beautiful smile. Nicole, I hope you're here too. And also Danny Rose, who has been helping us put up the tent and with the lights. And last night, Danny came home with a car so laden down with booze that I really thought that it was going to be scraping the curb. And finally, I'd like to thank Jamie Garudi, who is our most recent member of Climate XChange, for all of her patience and hard work and flexibility over the past week, helping us bring this event together. Thank you. All right.
Right into that mic.
Okay, all right. And so now, this evening, we are getting a glimpse of the clean energy future. So much hope and potential stands to be unleashed when we decide that this is indeed the future that we want for our children. So in addition to having a lot of fun, part of what we're going to be doing tonight is learning how to get to that future. Right now, a critical piece of legislation is pending in the State House that is the necessary first step. The passage of that bill, 1747, would be historical, making ours the first state in the nation to enact aggressive and meaningful environmental policy, bringing us one step closer to stabilizing the climate and securing the livable world that we all want for our children. Tonight, we have the opportunity to learn about that bill from its author, Senator Mike Barrett. Senator Barrett has already authored or championed numerous groundbreaking initiatives over the course of his career. In 1989, he led the fight in the state Senate for the passage of Massachusetts' first law barring discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation, something that we have now come to take for granted. In 1992, he drafted and won the passage of a first in the nation domestic violence registry law. And as Senate Chair of the Committee on Health Care, Senator Barrett focuses on health and human services for retirees, for the poor, and those with mental, developmental, and physical challenges. He has been hailed by the Civil Liberties Union of Massachusetts as a man of great courage and independence and enormous political skill, and we really could not agree more. Senator Barrett, it is a privilege to have you.
Thank you, Jessica. I wasn't sure if that was an invitation to step up or to go away, so Listen, I'm here for the apples. I know many of you are here for this marvelous car. How many of you have driven a Tesla so far? Not today, but in your lives. That is amazing. And the community that's grown up around the car is stunning. I'm here, and Jessica and Alan have opened up their home because we have a shameless request to make of all of you who live in the New England states and especially in Massachusetts. We propose to do the single most effective thing that a state government can do to fight climate change, and that's to put a price on carbon. A gnarly phrase, I grant you. And we're on the cusp of really moving in Massachusetts. You know, I happen to have, this morning's Globe. And two headlines dramatize the difficulty that all of you face as citizens of this wonderful country, right? One headline talks about John Boehner's resignation, which means we're going to get a more conservative Speaker of the U.S. House in his place. But the other talks about the Pope's emphasis on climate change as a rallying point for conservatives, moderates, and progressives together. The Pope and other members of the clergy, some of whom are here, have built bridges across political divides that people like me could not hope to build. But given the difficulty of what's going on in Washington, it falls to you to make sure that Massachusetts moves first. And effectively, we've put together, and we've been sensitive, I hope, to people from every part of the political spectrum, a modest little bill that would put Massachusetts #1 in terms of this carbon pricing stuff. I wish the language were a little simpler. The idea at its base, though, is pretty simple. And just attend to me just for a moment. I know you've got many fish to fry and lots of good conversations to have, but I want your reaction to this core idea of pricing the stuff we've been taking out of the ground, fossil fuels, fairly. Not excessively, but fairly. Now, there's a brilliant guy back in the 1920s in sooty London, the equivalent of Chinese cities today, an economy based then on coal. And he looked around, and even in the 1920s, almost 100 years ago, it was clear that people were dying because of our use of fossil fuels, as necessary sometimes as that use has been. People were dying, and what interested him as an economist is that the price of what he was burning in his own furnace didn't reflect these healthcare effects. People were still dying. Charities were having to bear, and hospitals were having to bear the brunt. Families were experiencing enormous trauma due to the loss of loved ones. None of it was reflected in the price, right? We kind of know, when we think about it, what's today incorporated into the price of a gallon of gas. It's the cost of exploring for the stuff, drilling for the stuff, extracting it, refining it, storing it, and transporting it. But what bothered this guy, Arthur Pigou, in the 1920s is that a price is supposed to incorporate all the cost of creating something, whether it's a table or a gallon of gas. And all he sought was to think through the complexities of the health and environmental impacts. It was health in those days. We're all too wise to the environmental impact today. He just wanted to get the price of the product right. So that, because what happens when you price a product right, your use of it becomes thoughtful. Probably you use less as the price reflects all the costs. All we're asking with this bill in Massachusetts is true pricing, honest pricing for stuff made of fossil fuels. And these days, so since Professor Pigou's time in the 1920s, the math has been done. Some of you have helped do it. We kind of now know what the social cost of carbon is. We can add the proper and fair price to the end products that we use nationwide, but until we get there, statewide, here in Massachusetts. So I propose that we go to this honest pricing approach. There's lots of detail here, but you don't want to be necessarily bogged down in that, and you certainly don't want to hear me talk about it. We can go to this fair price reflective of the health and environmental costs as well as the exploration and refining costs if you can talk to your local legislators, right? Today, we've got 160 members of the Massachusetts House, about 30 to their enormous credit are co-sponsors. That only leaves us, somebody do the math, 130 to go. That's where you come in. We've got 40 state senators, about 12 are co-sponsors. That leaves us with 28 to go. But here's the good news. A year ago, when you talked about this stuff, it was Greek. My apologies to Greek Americans. I don't want to single out Greek. But you get my drift. No response. Eyes would glaze over. They didn't understand what the heck you were talking about. They only knew it was too nerdy, too complicated, wasn't going to fly, not this year, sometime in the future, talk to me later. That's changed. And as I say, the Pope and the President, but all of you too, those of you who buy fuel-efficient cars, actually fuel-avoiding cars like Teslas, I know you use electricity, that helps enormously. Those of you who turn your thermostats down or put insulation in your attic are helping too. What we're doing, in effect, is proposing to create a price incentive so that more of us turn the thermostat down, so that more of us put insulation in the attic, and to be candid about it, so that some of us buy Teslas, rather than more of us buy Teslas than rely on fossil fuel dependent automobiles. So there's a little bit of a common interest here, and I want Tesla owners to help me out by talking to your legislators. It's not so much the number of the bill. What is the number? What's the number of my own bill? What is 1747. I mean, it is a lucky number, 1743. Is that right? Oops, 1747. But you know, the idea is so new still that we don't typically refer to it by its number. We refer to it by the concept, by the idea. Putting a price on carbon pricing, it's not a tax. I want to talk to the conservatives in the audience. I know you're out there. This is the one climate change fighting idea that Governor Baker can comfortably support. We've met him halfway, right? He won the gubernatorial election fair and square. He took a no new tax pledge. Hear me, this is not a tax. I'm a middling lawyer, but I'm just good enough to know to have spoken to lawyers better than me. And we've written this language so that legally, constitutionally, according to the Massachusetts Supreme Court, not a tax, a true fee, a user fee, if you will. And it's because it's truly not a tax that Governor Baker can comfortably get on board. And we need his moral leadership. Right? Yeah. He's going to be, I'll make a prediction, 2 years from now, Governor Charlie Baker will be the spokesperson for responsible carbon pricing that moderates as well as progressives can like, and he'll be talking to the Republicans in Washington. He'll lend his moral authority to this if you will lend your moral energy to it today. We've got to persuade the governor this is for him. You know, I was going to go on, but because you applauded, then I'm going to quit. You deserve a reward. Okay. I'm determined to show you that this incentive stuff isn't for the birds. You delivered. I'm getting out of here. Thank you. Let's go to work.
Thank you, Senator Barrett, so much. Well, I would like to say that what carbon pricing means to me is hope. And Senator Barrett's bill is the vehicle for that hope. I'd like to introduce you now to the members of Climate XChange, one of whom is on the phone from Washington State, Kathy Carruthers. The others, I hope, will identify themselves as I call out your names. We have Rick Cutler, one of the musicians here tonight, who spoke earlier. Zori Zimmerman, is over here. Rebecca Morris. I'd like to see her. Okay. Mark Breslow. Chuck Anastas. Bonnie Widows. Susanna Place. Jamie Garuti, and myself. 2.5 years ago, none of us knew each other. We were each siloed in our own lives and careers, painfully aware that our actions against climate change, swapping out our light bulbs, recycling, simply were not commensurate with the scale and the scope of the problem. Then, each in a different way, we discovered the concept of carbon pricing, and our paths began to converge. Kathy Carruthers, a retired energy economist from Washington State, became aware of Senator Barrett's legislation and reached out to a citizens climate lobby volunteer, Gary Rosinski, and myself, to suggest that what the senator needed was a study proving the feasibility of his proposal. With Kathy's help, we commissioned the premier econometric modeling firm, Regional Economic Models, Inc., or REMI, to model out Senator Barrett's legislation to spectacular results. I am proud to say that that study was the first of its kind in the nation and caused a sensation. It has now been followed up by numerous others from California to Rhode Island to, most recently and unexpectedly, Arkansas. Our small group began meeting regularly, hammering out ideas and trying to organize ourselves. we realized that we needed to reach out not only to the usual suspects, like the environmental community, but to others like business people, civic and faith organizations, Republicans, Democrats, conservatives, liberals, Tesla owners. We began holding public seminars and panels about carbon pricing. The Educational Foundation of America reached out to us with a significant grant, enabling the formation of a coalition of environmental groups. With this new coalition, the Campaign for a Clean Energy Future, we brought in a delegation from British Columbia, which has already had a carbon tax in effect since 2008, to testify at the State House and at MIT. We've talked to high schools, colleges, churches, and at dozens of other venues. And what has become so clear to me at these talks is how disconnected people have become from their own political power. The power that our forefathers found valuable enough to fight and die to bestow upon us, their descendants. My very erudite friend, Rick, often reminds me of this quote by Ben Franklin. As Dr. Franklin left Independence Hall on the final day of the Constitutional Convention in 1787, a woman asked him, "Well, doctor, what have we got, a republic or a monarchy?" To which Ben Franklin replied, "A republic, madam, if you can keep it." I remember when I was young how ardently and proudly my parents used to talk politics. We had both Republican and Democrat friends, and conversations frequently turned to politics and history. Those conversations were passionate because this was the Vietnam era, but they were civil. Where has this kind of political discourse gone? We seem to believe now that talking about the grave concerns of our day and how they might be solved politically has become impolite. We no longer know how to talk to people across political lines because we have swallowed the story that our nation is so polarized it's pointless. We've come to believe that we as individuals have no real political power, that our government has been completely corrupted by powerful special interests and dark money. So we've accepted our role as passive observers in our own democracy. Let me ask you a quick question to illustrate my point. So don't raise your hand or give an answer, just think the answer to yourself. Do you know the name of your state senator? Not your federal senator. That would be, in our case, Ed Markey or Senator Warren, but your state senator. Do you know the name of your state representative? And even more importantly, does he or she know your name? If not, why not? Is it because you are too unimportant? That you don't matter? Is it because you're not enough of an expert on the issue that you care about? How can a well-intentioned representative or senator do his job when his own constituents don't communicate with him? Politics is about relationships. We each need to begin creating relationships with the people who represent us. Barney Frank, a former Massachusetts representative, once said that if his office received one phone call about an issue, it was a crank. If he received 2, it was a coincidence. If he received 6, it was a groundswell. Enough to make him change his vote. 6 calls. The machinery of our democracy is still in place, dusty and rusted from neglect and abuse as it may be. It is still functional, and it sits waiting for us. The problem is we have either forgotten how to use it or we no longer feel worthy. Transformative legislation, like Senator Barrett's, becomes the law of the land only when people like us wake up from our dream state and inform our legislators that we want action. That's all that it takes. Yeah. Okay. Every one of you not only matters, you are essential. Like marriage equality, healthcare reform, and even emancipation, enacting an environmental policy that could actually solve global warming is impossible until it is inevitable. So we have begun then to make this policy real, and all of this takes time and money. We began receiving grant money from various foundations about a year ago, but none of it is enough. All of us have gladly given what we could, and we will continue to do so, but the personal and the financial cost has been great. Climate XChange needs your help. We need to train citizens like you how to lobby for this policy. We need to do some polling. We need more studies. And we need to hire the superb marketers who will help us defend ourselves against the Koch brothers' money machine. Senator Barrett has already been approached by the Koch brothers. They're very aware of what he's doing. Because once we pass this legislation here, we will need to help other states like Vermont, New York, Washington, and Arkansas, where similar efforts are already afoot, until there is an unstoppable national demand for carbon pricing, until meaningful federal legislation is passed and carbon pricing becomes the law of the land. So you can help us right here and right now to make history. One way is to begin to create the relationship with your state representative and senator that I mentioned earlier. If you don't know who he or she is, there's a great app that you can download on your smartphone. It's called iCitizen. I'd like you to make a note to yourself to call your state rep or senator on Monday and ask him or her to support Senator Barrett's legislation. If you're from out of state, ask that they have a look at that legislation and consider writing something similar. And next, ask them when they will be in district, because legislators spend time, often at a library or community center, talking to their constituents about their concerns. Introduce yourself. You matter. And remember that all effective and positive relationships are based on respect and appreciation. So, thank you again for being here tonight and for listening. There is one last way that you can help us, which my husband, Alan, who has appeared now, is going to explain. And so I'd like to welcome Alan up. All right, come on, Alan.
I've been working sort of alongside with the CXC folks for a couple years now. And I'm actually kind of blown away. I'm a bit of a startup guy in a business sense. And you know, you sort of judge a startup by how effective it is with almost no resources whatsoever. And I'd have to say CXC looks a lot like that to me. It's a startup for a cause. It's a good cause. And I cannot believe what they have accomplished with basically no resources whatsoever. It's just, I mean, it's incredible. It's incredible. It blows me away. And the thing is, you know, when I think about the shoestring these guys are on, and then I think, what can I do to help this organization? Well, it's like they could send me to talk to people in the State House, but my mouth is so big that I can fit both feet in at one time. So, you know, it's kind of counterproductive. You send me to talk to somebody, then you got to send somebody else after me to fix what I did. So that's not a good idea. You know, so what do? And, you know, in a previous life, I was a bit of an engineer. And in fact, I see a couple people in the crowd who knew me from back then, and they don't let me be an engineer anymore because that didn't work out too well. And then I did some business stuff, and now they don't let me do much of that anymore. So what do I do now to help these guys? I got a pretty face, you know, but where do I go with that? So what does that leave? It occurred to me that I can probably figure out a way to help them make some money, because Lord knows they have no money. And that's something at least I know a little bit about. So I was looking around about 6 months ago, and I got interested in raffles. So that's what I'm up here to talk about. I'm going to talk about raffles, because a lot of people put on raffles to make money. And I studied all these raffles. I looked at you know, stuff across the country. I looked at stuff here in Massachusetts. And I thought, okay, so we can have a raffle for Climate XChange and make some money that way. And we'll have some prizes and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And so I went to the board and I said, well, you know, do you think we could have a raffle? And they said, well, you know, we don't know what else you would do, so why don't you do something productive? I said, sure. So I studied it, and we made this raffle. And I hope you're going to like this. There's some prizes. I'm going to tell you just quickly what some of the prizes are. One of the prizes is the Model S Experience, which, oh man, does anybody here know what kind of car I drive? Anybody at all?
You have an insane button?
No, and I need one.
I watched the drag race.
So the thing with the Experience is, you know, like today there's a car circulating around and you can get in that car and you can take a ride, you know, and a Tesla guy is driving it. And there's a reason you're not driving it, because we have an open bar. So we're not putting you behind the wheel, right? So he's driving it, but with the Experience, you get the car in your driveway for your use for 24 hours. Okay, it's your car to use, and I suggest you take a road trip or something in it. And that itself is something that Tesla values at $1,000. Okay, so that's one prize. And then there's a prize, which is kind of, because I'm lazy, it's one of these iRobot vacuum cleaners, you know, and none of these prizes have any carbon emissions. So like that's a good thing. No carbon's coming out, but it's cleaning, and you don't have to do the work, right? So that's $1,000. Then there's an iRobot scrubber and mopper, right? Yeah.
I don't have to clean it.
Yeah.
Yes, you do.
I should have figured that. I should have paid that kid to do that. And then there's an outdoor care kit, and that's everything electric. It's trimmers and hedge trimmers and snow throwers and lawn mowers and all this stuff, and an electric chainsaw, which is really handy. And that's $2,000. And then the big prize is something that I hope you guys have seen out in the driveway. It is a pair of electric bikes. For $5,000, those things are awesome. Okay, if you haven't been on one, you have got to get on one of these things. They're really cool. They're all electric, and even if the battery lasts like 60 miles, and even if it wears out, you can still pedal, so it's great. It's great. So that's, wait, did I? Oh, I left something out. I'm sorry, there's one more. There's one more prize that I forgot. I'm sorry. Could you hand me that box there? Well, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you. We're also going to raffle off a Tesla. Okay? Here it is. This is what the Tesla is. Okay, you like this?
Yeah.
This is an awesome scale model reproduction of the car that you will actually win. Okay? Now, I have to tell you something. I looked around at all these raffles, and they kind of made me mad. Okay? Because the first thing is you look at these raffles, and I swear to God, they're an honest car, but it's always like the base model. You know, there's none of the other stuff on it, and that drives me nuts. So we looked at doing a Model S Tesla that wasn't a base model. So we put dual motors on it so you have all-wheel drive, because it is kind of awful in the winter in Boston. And then we said, well, let's stick on, I don't know, some autopilot and air suspension. We'll put on the winter package and the premium interior. I mean, basically, it's an awesome car. And it goes 270 miles on its range. And it goes 0 to 60 in 4.2 seconds, which if you're 52 years old and you can't have a mistress, you want that. Okay? You want that. So, and 4.2 seconds, by the way, just in case anybody's keeping score, that is faster than a 2006 Porsche 911 GT3 RS 997. I don't even know exactly what that is, but I'm faster than that, so I am very happy about that. And at the same time, the car will seat 5 people, or with the rear folding seat, you know, for the kids, you can seat 7. So it's like perfect. It is an awesome car. And it has a value of about $105,000. Okay? Now, I don't really think the story should stop there, because we had a conversation with CXC, you know, what do you really want to do with this? Because there's another problem with these raffles, and that is you win the car, and I I'm not kidding you. You can't afford to win it. You win the car, and you know what you get hit with? You get hit with a tax bill that you have to pay before you can plop your rear end into the seat, which makes my head rocket off my neck. I mean, that just makes no sense. How can you win and not win? I mean, and you read some of the forums out there, and some guys, you know, sort of posting, should I take out an auto loan to pay off my taxes? And on a car like this, that tax bill would be about $26,000. So CXC said, we're not going to do it that way. We will pay the tax bill for you. And to do that, you have to pay even more. The way the IRS works, CXC is going to pay about $36,000 in taxes on that car. Not just the U.S. taxes. CXC will also pay $5,000 towards your state taxes, right? Your excise tax, your vehicle tax, your income tax if you're not living in New Hampshire, you know, things like that. And because we want to make sure that you get into the car and drive, we're also going to put in a high-power wall charger for your garage, and we will pay $500 so you can get an electrician to come and put the thing in. Okay? So you're going to be in that car. You are going to be in that car, or I'm going to die trying, because you've got to be in that car. Now, there have been some late-breaking developments at Tesla. It turns out that they are coming out with a new vehicle in a couple of days called the Model X, which is an SUV, and it's all electric. And it goes 0 to 60 in 3.8 seconds. For an SUV, I mean, that's an SUV that's faster than a Lamborghini, okay? So what we're going to do is you win this prize, you will build this vehicle to your exact specifications. You will choose, do I want the sedan or do I want the SUV? Do I want red, black, green, blue, purple, polka dot? You'll choose the interior. You'll choose every option up to the money that would go into this car. And for that matter, if you want to toss in some money of your own beyond that, hey, feel free. But it's still a really good car at this price. So what we're going to do, can I, actually, Senator, if I may presume upon you, can I have that box? Yeah, it's all in here. So you're probably used to those like little red raffle tickets, right? You know, or some little cheapo thing. That is not what's going to happen here. You're going to buy a raffle ticket, and you're going to get a ticket like this, except smaller. It is going to be smaller. And it is going to entitle you to win one of these 6 prizes. Okay, so starting now, you can actually buy this ticket, and it'll be available until December 31st, when we're going to hold a drawing right here at this house for the winner of these raffle prizes. Okay, so it starts now. Excuse me, and I would also like to point out, actually, the price on this is $250 for a ticket, and I did a lot of research on that. Turns out, what everybody is doing tickets on is like $100 or $200 for the base vehicle, where you pay every fee and tax and everything just comes to you. And those are the vehicles that you win, and you cannot afford to win them. So the difference here is, well, we could have charged $400 because those other things, basically, if you scale them up, they're $400 tickets. We said, nope, we'll make it only $250. We'll do 6 prizes instead of 1. And your money is going to go to a fantastic cause, and somebody is going to win this thing, and they're going to win all these prizes, and somebody's going to win the grand prize, and they are not going to be writing checks as a result. They're going to get in this car, and they're going to drive. Okay? And if you can't tell, I am pretty serious about that. You know, I want somebody in the car. So sales are starting now. If you want to buy a ticket, there's some people out there who will talk to you and take the order, and you can buy the ticket. You can also go onto our website. You can go to climateexchange.org, and you can find a raffle button there, and you can press on that, and it will actually allow you to buy the ticket. You could buy it on your cell phone or on your iPad right now. So thank you very much for letting me talk to you guys. I appreciate it. I hope I am looking at somebody out there who's going to win this car. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, everyone, enjoy the evening, please. And you can look for a CXC board member if you would like to be one of the first to buy a ticket. Thank you again.
I used to work as a freelance writer for the Townsman. One night, my editor sent me to cover a talk that was being given by the Union of Concerned Scientists. During that talk, the gentleman said that by the turn of the next century, Boston would have the climate of South Carolina. He said that even if we never emitted another atom or molecule of CO2 from this point forward, that will happen because of the legacy load we've already emitted into the atmosphere. And I was just struck speechless. And that was a real, complete, life-changing moment for me when I realized that this is just completely not acceptable and the next generation is so endangered and we are walking around in a dream state of complacency. So I went home and I changed all my light bulbs and I bought a Prius and I went on the renewable energy plan, and all of these are fantastic things, but I realized that nothing that I was doing was commensurate with the scale and the scope of the problem. And in my own town, there seemed to be among my peers just such an absence of concern that I realized that for some reason the environmental movement has not reached most people like me. Most people haven't had the privilege of listening to a Union of Concerned Scientists man talk. I think most people are simply unaware of how desperate this situation is. Then I was introduced to a gentleman who works for an organization called the Citizens Climate Lobby, which is trying to put a price on carbon at the national level. And that was another life-changing moment because it was such an incredibly empowering experience to be trained by the Citizens Climate Lobby to lobby for a federal revenue-neutral carbon tax. So I've been to Washington about 3 times, and I've talked to congressmen and senators down there, and have been so dismayed by the absolute gridlock of which we are all aware right now. There's simply no movement. So it dawned on me, I wonder if perhaps we could do this on the state level. The states have long been called the laboratories of democracy. Perhaps if we were to initiate a policy like this here, other states would follow, the way they have with healthcare reform, with marriage equality. Even Massachusetts was the first state in the nation to abolish slavery. So we have a long and proud history of passing cutting-edge legislation. And together, I began crossing paths with some other people who were other carbon pricing advocates. And we found Senator Barrett, who had already submitted carbon pricing legislation. We didn't even know he existed. And ever since then, we have been working single-mindedly to promote awareness of this policy, which we think would be transformative. And best of all, what I think neither Senator Barrett nor myself mentioned tonight is that if we were to structure a carbon tax along the lines that Senator Barrett is suggesting, we know from some of the best research out there by Regional Economic Models Incorporated, we know that this model, this tax, this fee would benefit the poor over the rich. That the poor, starting from, it's like an inverse pyramid. The poor and the middle class would come out ahead financially. The wealthier citizens of our state, like myself, might come out behind by a couple of $100s, which we can well afford, and which we could also avoid if we were to conserve more. So I just see this as a complete win-win, something that appeals to conservatives as well as to liberals, and I think we can do this.
And I think most people do care about this issue, that they have control over it. And the way they have control over it is, the more they use fossil fuel, the more the fee gets paid. They're going to get money back no matter what, as I understand it. But you know, if they use less, they're going to get more money back than they expend on it. So they have control in their own lives, and they participate in control over how much carbon we use in Massachusetts. That's why I think it's the best possible approach to this problem, which is a worldwide problem.